living in the United States based on keeping third world countries in a lower standard of living?
I think not. I think that's a mistake to think that we do it at their expense. Don't think that's it at all. But the point is that we cannot say, we could try sharing, we could send some of our energy or some of our material things to them, but this wouldn't result in their being any better for long, because they are increasing at such a rate they would absorb anything that we send them. I think this is the wrong way to look at it. It's better to say that each nation, it's up to them to manage their own affairs. We have to manage ours, but we're not taking things from other countries. We buy whatever we get. The bananas we get from Central America, we don't take them, we buy them. We give them money, they use the money to buy other things, and that's their business. And as long as we live on this sort of a trade business, it's fair.
Aren't nations rather arbitrary boundaries? They're certainly not based on ecological resources.
Oh, they're arbitrary boundaries based on history. But it's extremely dangerous to try to change the boundaries, as we found time after time. For instance, after the First World War, we changed the boundaries in Europe. It led to nothing but trouble. After the Second World War, we changed boundaries. This is leading to trouble. So you better leave the boundaries alone. Say, well, these boundaries are arbitrary, determined by history, but let's see if we can't stay happy within these boundaries.
If we keep the boundaries as they are, then shouldn't the nations base their policies of growth on sustainability?
That's right, and I think we will have the most serious attempts at doing this if the people in every nation regard the boundaries as fixed and final. In other words, do not anticipate absorbing another nation, and also don't fear another nation absorbing us. So each one's just got to take care of itself, and that's that. Now we'll go on from there.
The population is growing so rapidly. For millions of years it was growing slowly, but yet in another 10, 20 years we'll see another billion people. In a few decades we'll see a doubling of the population.
Well, there'll be a lot of suffering, and there may even be a reversal. This is the thing one doesn't predict, partly because if you predict a reversal, people say, oh, you want one. You're cruel. You want to see people die. I don't want to see anybody die, but nevertheless, the fact is that by any reasonable standards, at least 1 million, and maybe more than that, die every year from malnutrition over the world, and the number may rise. Doesn't mean I want it, it's just that we're in a being very badly managing our resources.
You don't want anybody to die, but sometimes your solutions sound like that because you've taken the position, as the medical doctor does in wartime, of triage.
Yes, now, and this is because one has to insist that each nation be responsible for its own numbers. If you do not, then you're in for real trouble. For example, back in 1979, I believe it was, Zhou Enlai of China, talking with President Carter about the business of numbers and immigration, said, anytime you want 10 million, I'll send you 10 million people. In other words, he would like that. That would help solve China's problem. But it wouldn't really help them, because China would continue to breed and they'd produce more. We cannot solve other people's problems by taking in their extra numbers. And so this is why one has to say, if you're suffering because of the extra numbers, do something about it, but don't expect to get rid of the extra.
In other words, immigration from one nation to another isn't going to be the answer.
It's never a solution. Not to overpopulation. It may be a solution of other sorts if you can get rid of the ones you don't want, as Castro did when he sent us 200,000 people in 1 week's time. He got rid of a lot of people he didn't want to know. We helped solve his problems, and by taking them on in our own country, and we're still suffering from that, the large number of people in jails, because he sent us his worst people, not his best.
Some people may call you racist, that you want to keep people out of the country.
This doesn't depend on racism at all. It depends on sheer numbers. 200,000 people, I don't care where they come from, I don't want to admit them to the United States.
But isn't that the proposed limit, 200,000?
No. At the present time, the limit for the last year, which wasn't really a limit, but the number legally admitted, was some 800,000 legally, and probably a similar number illegally. There are various people in Congress proposing changes that, mostly for reasons of loyalty to their own group. They're proposing increasing the numbers. There are a few people who say, well, we ought to cut back on the numbers, either to the old number 400,000 or maybe to 200,000, but they're not getting very far with this proposal because this is too shocking an idea for most Americans.
What would be the way to deal with people wanting to leave one country and moving to another country?
Well,
if this is one Earth, shouldn't we have free movement?
I would call your attention to the fact that the United Nations has come out flatly for the right of all peoples to emigrate, to leave their country. They have not come out for the right of anybody to immigrate into another country. And that is absolutely correct, you see, because if they came out for the right to immigrate, that's a right of invasion. And how can an international organization say anybody that wants to invade can invade?